And so as the market improves, you're going to be phasing in retail and housing together, or one first and then the other, or what's your vision?
You know, it really depends, again, on the market, but we think that, again, based on some of the retail tenants that are still actually in the market, and there are some, and the popularity of Pacific Commons, that the retail might actually go first, and then the housing, obviously, there's a little bit of a lag time here in this market.
Because one of the things that was promised was the economic development, and certainly we're looking at dining, shopping, and entertainment options. So if there's an alternative site, that still remains your intention?
It does, to continue to develop retail out at Pacific Commons, even though it might be a little different than we originally envisioned with the stadium there. But that also leaves some opportunities. Some of the feedback that we got with our original plan was, is this going to take away from a downtown development? Mm-hmm. So now maybe there's an opportunity, if the alternate ends up being the preferred project, maybe it's a little more traditional retail out there to add on to the Pacific Commons project, and it still leaves room for the downtown project. So that was always one of the questions about our preferred project that always came up was, what about the downtown?
Well, one of the things that I just want to clarify, what's presented is the preferred plan, which is the original Pacific Commons. The alternative is something that's being considered. It is not a given. It hasn't been decided.
Sure.
I want people to understand that. Can you tell me, in terms of impact, when does the season typically begin, and how long does it last till?
It's usually right around March to October. The end
Playoffs
of September. Hopefully through October.
Hopefully through October.
And in terms of peak period and rush hour periods, again, we only have an evening rush hour period, and during the week we have about 42 games on weekday evenings. The others are on weekends, and that was always discussed in the traffic. It's discussed in the traffic analysis at Pacific Commons.
Okay, so how many games approximately during the school year then?
I'd have to get the exact number, then look at the school year and try and figure out exactly how many games. So we can get back to you with that.
Okay. If you'd like. Okay. Can you tell us? You mentioned neighborhood protection. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
I think whether we're at Pacific Commons or at the alternate site, it really is our obligation and commitment that we have to protect the residential neighborhoods around us, and we need to work with the residential groups to figure out the best ways to do that. We have a lot of ideas on our own, but we'd want to go out and talk to, if it's the alternate site, the existing residential community out there, and try and come up with a plan. If it's Pacific Commons, as we sell homes, we're going to have a protection plan there too as well, to make sure traffic and other impacts don't impinge on the residential community.
So what is your plan for community outreach?
We have a whole team of people. What we'd like to do is reach out to a few people in the neighborhood and come up with a plan, and not necessarily have it come from us, but ask the neighborhood how best to roll that out within their community. And we actually have had different meetings throughout the city of Fremont based on the preferred alternative. We've gone out to different groups and made presentations, and I think we would continue that process.
Well, with the alternative, there is more of a specific neighborhood that has some concern. So what is your plan to outreach to them? How would they contact you? I mean,
we will reach out to, and it's our understanding that there are some groups within the residential community, and we would go ahead and contact those groups and ask them what, we'll propose some things in terms of how to do outreach, but we definitely want to get their input and figure out how we can best work together to come up with a neighborhood protection plan.
Well, how would they get in contact with you? Let's say there was any given person that said, hey, I really would like to talk to you.
Well, we're here, again, I think we'll probably get some feedback tonight, and so we'll be here to answer questions and provide cards, and we would start that program if the alternative is ever became the preferred project. So.
Okay, thank you.
I have just a couple of questions. Well, I'll wait for Mr. Blaylock. I missed that. How many weekday games did you say there were?
There are 42 weekday evening games.
Okay. A weekday evening. How about weekday day?
Weekday day there are currently 13, and that number can change. It could be reduced all the way down to 4. There's certain restrictions where you have to have a couple a year. But again, I think we're flexible on that based on at Pacific Commons. If it was preferred to have fewer or more, we could look at that. So we really have some flexibility on our day games.
Okay. And without getting into any specifics, I'm sure you're not prepared for that. Are there obstacles to the preferred site? Are you facing obstacles in dealing with the preferred site?
I think the feedback we keep getting from the regional agencies, transit, environmental, regional planning, I think really almost unanimously they've come back and said, with BART being extended down to San Jose, with increased ridership, you really need to strongly consider a Warm Springs alternative. And we've been talking about that because that's the feedback we've gotten from our plan. Also, the retailers out in Pacific Commons, there's a significant number of them that will benefit greatly from the ballpark being there. I think there's some concern from the larger retailers that with traffic and parking, and we've come up with mitigation plans, but I think there's still some concern about that as well. So I would say those are the biggest obstacles out there, and obviously shuttle service back and forth to the proposed Warm Springs station and bridges and other ways to get people to the site.
Okay. Well, I'll get back to that another time. Okay. If the alternate site comes into play, the essential site that's been mentioned isn't enough for the parking, as I understand. How would you deal with parking?
I'm sorry, at the alternate site?
At the alternate site.
The alternate site, the area is about 240 acres. So depending on how it was...
Is it 240 acres or is it 40?
No, the whole area. We haven't specified a site.
Okay.
We've really looked at the area right around Warm Springs. And if you look at the alternate plan, it's about 240 acres in there that potentially could be used for parking or the ballpark. So, and then as office space gets developed, again, the idea of being able to share the use. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So you're not anticipating a problem with that?
No, we're not. But again, we need to, if that becomes the preferred alternative, we need to figure out a plan for that and obviously present it
to
staff and council.
Okay.